I'll go ahead and get us started then. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming today. We, Northlight Solutions Group, are very excited to be hosting you all for a discussion today on Agentforce Revenue Management. Here at NSG, we are, just to orient everybody to who we are and you know, the topic of the day, we're an implementation partner with Salesforce. We have exceptional relationships with Salesforce, Salesforce reps, Salesforce AE, Salesforce themselves. We see many of our contacts here in the audience, so thank you guys so much for coming. We are at NSG experts in Agentforce Revenue Management, and some of you might be aware that Salesforce announced the name change of Revenue Cloud Advanced to Agentforce Revenue Management at Dreamforce 2025. We at NSG, being very passionate about the product and its evolution, are very committed to the path forward with this name change. Thus, you'll hear us saying Agentforce Revenue Management or ARM, but if you have been following RCA or maybe evaluated it in the past, we are talking about the same tool. So wanted to disclaim that to everybody. We are talking about that same tool. Today, you can expect an insightful conversation from our expert panel as listed on the screen today. And I'm going to allow everybody a chance to further introduce themselves as they present to you all, but I'm going to kind of orient us and give an initial introduction to everybody. First, I'll introduce you to myself. I'll be emceeing today. My name is Caroline Adams. I've been a Salesforce architect in the quoting space, implementing revenue technologies for about the last 8 years. I have since moved into a director role here at NSG, where my goal really is to advise and educate customers and all of my peers on tackling business issues with technology. Next, I'm going to introduce our Chief Delivery Officer, Ben Appa. Ben has been in the Salesforce industry for the last 17 years. He's a very knowledgeable lead-to-cash expert. We're going to hear from Ben a little bit later in our presentation today, but he's a leader in the space. We're very lucky to have him here. I've worked with Ben for the last several years. I followed him here because he's great to work with, so excited to hear from him. We also have the privilege today, of hosting David Beebe, Head of Revenue Solutions at Salesforce. He's going to be discussing with you all the power of and the importance of this ARM tool as a full revenue solution. You're going to learn more about how the product has evolved and how it can help your business from a really strategic standpoint. And finally, we're going to be joined by our incredible customers at Impel, Andy Bolin and Luke Fitzwater, who recently went live on ARM. They are going to be addressing some of the reasons they decided to adopt the tool, how their experience has been thus far with the platform, and how their transition to the new system has been. We're also going to be joined a little bit later by the NSG Impel project team who supported the engagement. So they're going to help shed some light on the project and how that went with Impel as well. And finally, the latter half of our webinar is going to be focused on a Q&A session. I want to really emphasize here that today's fireside chat content really was derived from your feedback when you registered. It came from the feedback we've gotten from customers on the tool, some of their biggest questions around ARM, as well as what we've heard in the community. So again, I want to emphasize this is for you all. We want this to be informative for prospective ARM users. So if you have any questions that come up, let me change the slides so you can see our rules here. If you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat. We are going to try to do our best to answer them as time permits. And if there's anyone in particular you want to address your question to, please feel free to also include that in the chat as well. And at that, I'm going to pass the mic over to David Beebe, who's going to be giving us an overview of ARM, as I stated, what we can expect from the tool, how it's shaping the future of revenue solutions, and more. So David, over to you.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Let's throw up our forward-looking statement. Please make your purchasing decisions based on generally available software from Salesforce. All right, so we can go ahead and move on to the next one. Good to meet everyone on the call. I see some friendly faces, and I see some faces that I hope will become friendly over the next year or so. I'm David Beebe. I have been at Salesforce. Actually, this Friday will be my 9-year anniversary. I have been in the Revenue Cloud space the entire time for much of my career here. I was in pre-sales solution engineering, leading teams in North America. and more recently made the switch over into our product management organization, where I lead our revenue solutions team. Think of us as the chief customer advocate. So my boss is actually the chief customer officer for Revenue Cloud. And so our job is to advocate on your behalf, understand what is it that you want to see in solutions, how can we deliver the most world-class products for you, and of course, how can we get them up and live, which of course, Northlight is doing an amazing job doing, and we're going to hear more about their story with Impel a little bit later on today. So first and foremost, let's kind of start from the beginning. Our journey at Salesforce in quote to cash began a long time before we were a leader on the Gartner Magic Quadrant for CPQ. We've been pioneering within this space since we introduced the quote object in a Sales Cloud a long time ago. Now, we did this for our own use case to make quoting and renewals a really integrated and automated part of the sales process. But we looked at it and we said, I think we have something here. This is pretty transformational for our business, and so we think our customers may need it too. And that's when we acquired two of the best CPQ solutions on the market. We acquired SteelBrick and Velocity to meet the growing needs of our customer base across every industry. Now, phase one of our journey has been anchored on solving direct sales use cases and that type of thing, but we're quickly seeing the need for omni-channel consumption and usage all the way through to billing becoming absolutely critical no matter how you sell. Now, you may notice there's something missing on this slide. We get all the way up to subscription management, but where's Agentforce Revenue Management? Well, let's go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So, over this period of time that I'm referring to, it's become extremely clear that revenue is not just the number on a dashboard, a static figure, it's a whole process. Living, connected, breathing series of actions and decisions that touches all teams. Whether you're in finance, ops, IT, of course, sales, everybody plays a role. And when that process breaks down, everybody, including your customers, feels the pain, which is why getting it right, it's not just a priority of your sales reps, it's a business imperative. It impacts growth, customers, and potentially even shareholders. So on our next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how revenue has changed. Used to be very simple. You build a product or a service, you put a price on it, maybe you get an approval, depending on how loose your approval rules are, but ultimately you hope to close the deal. And for some businesses, that may still work, right? There are customers where that works perfectly fine for them, but the customer base may be changing. So your customers, their expectations, the models, the ways that they want to purchase, it's all evolving really quickly in terms of flexibility, transparency, and seamless experiences across every channel or an omni-channel experience. So even if the process today feels steady, you're moving along nicely, the customers are already thinking about new models and new channels, and they are shifting their preferences, kind of redefining what good looks like. So I think everyone on this call knows the goal is that the deals aren't one-time events. They are living, ongoing relationships driving, the hope is lifetime customer success. That's what we seek internally at Salesforce, of course, is lifetime customer success. Now, the older tools in this space weren't really built for this kind of motion, right? It's hard to keep up with speed, complexity, and the word of 2026 and on into FY27, which is where we're going into, is scale, right? How the speed, the complexity, and the scale of how Revenue Cloud work or how revenue works today. But on the next slide, this has become one of my favorite slides. I think we pioneered this at Dreamforce last year, maybe a little earlier. This is what we call, you ever hear from my skip level boss, Meredith Schmidt, our EVP of Revenue Cloud. This is the messy middle. So revenue is the one process that touches all parts of your organization. It should unite the business, but it is often the source of the most friction in the business. Disconnected spreadsheets, systems, siloed tools. It slows everything down. So again, it's the messy middle of getting from your CRM to your ERP system because it's being bogged down by a lot of manual effort, risk, and compliance, and delays. So if on the next slide, we're reinventing how we're thinking about this, right? So the time is now to transform revenue management, but your customers at the center, not the sales rep, not finance, not ops. They'll all benefit, but the customers at the center. So because they're looking for flexibility in pricing, they're looking for the transparency in their purchase decision and a frictionless experience. So the opportunity to rethink, how do you sell? How do you go to market? What do you sell? How do you set your monetization strategies? And then again, how do you go to market with all of this? And that requires a platform that connects it all together. So we've kind of teed up the full revenue lifecycle across every channel. Now, on the next slide, this is sort of the payoff that was maybe missing from my first slide, which is Agentforce Revenue Management, right? This is the future of revenue management here at Salesforce, and we're helping customers eliminate that messy middle with a complete, intelligent revenue platform. So with Agentforce Revenue Management, think about all those groups I mentioned earlier: sales, finance, operations. They're all working from the same connected platform. So you bring your products and your pricing to market faster, you sell through any channel, you use different go-to-market models, and you gain total visibility of your revenue data all within Salesforce. Now, on the next slide, it's a better illustration of exactly what we're talking about here. So first and foremost, Agentforce Revenue Management is API first and composable. What that means is you can kind of start wherever you want to along the continuum of the product. Now, many organizations, of course, start by placing their product catalog within Salesforce, which then drives their pricing, which drives their quoting, their contracting, their orders, so on and so forth. But we've got customers that say, I'm mastering my product catalog elsewhere, so I want to pull in from there and just use quoting or just plug it into orders. And being a composable platform, that's okay. So whether you're focused on quoting, contracts, orders, billing, and bringing all of that into Salesforce or through a partner portal, through a digital storefront, that's all part of the API first and composable strategy. And we're talking business process APIs, again, built specifically for your revenue process on how your business runs every single day. So what this also means, of course, is that your entire revenue process can become, that's right, folks, I haven't said it yet, agentic through AI agents, bringing your intelligence and bringing your automation through every single step of your quote to cash process. So let's take a look at a few remaining slides here. We'll go to two more, if you don't mind. We've got a product update slide, and then we'll go to our next one here. So FY26 for us, now we at Salesforce, we are ending FY26 on January 31st. So we've got 10 days left, and then we begin FY27 in February. But FY26 has been really, really busy. It's been the sophomore year of Agentforce Revenue Management, and we're highlighting all of these different areas as being critical components to how we're thinking about not only where we've been, but where we're going. Of course, agentic and Slack first, that's going to be a big part of how we're moving forward in the market. It doesn't mean Slack only. It doesn't mean agentic only. But it does mean agentic first, Slack first. How do we think about where our customers are doing their business, where the sales reps and the customers are coming together through a connected experience? If we look over to the right-hand side, deep revenue management capabilities, consumption billing, advanced configuration, dynamic revenue orchestrator. In my opinion, one of the most unsung heroes of Agentforce Revenue Management is DRO in terms of order decomposition. And then if we look over further on the right-hand side, again, any revenue model and any sales channel. This has become so critical, whether you want to purchase just through direct sales, you want to look through a commerce experience, you want a custom storefront that has been built through APIs, all of that is supported by Agentforce Revenue Management. So we're truly bringing revenue throughput into the future. So I think we've just got 3 more slides here. If we go to the next one. So think about Agentforce Revenue Management as your ultimate agent-based platform where you're transforming how your company actually monetizes, how you make profit. So the main focus is how can we increase productivity, boost revenue, and make sure that your financials are absolutely spot on, right? They are fully compliant and secure and controlled. So instead of sellers doing all the heavy lifting, you think about your AI agents being their teammates, helping them to maximize deals, handle compliance, and automate everything from quoting to billing, even to contract execution. So in a nutshell, my new philosophy, agents automate, humans lead, and revenue flows. It's about supercharging the organization, right? And giving teams an intelligent co-pilot. Now, final slide here, we'll move to the next one. We have a ton of generally available agents that are built on the Agentforce Revenue Management platform. So there's a couple that, I'm excited about. Of course, agentic quoting. I was at World Tour in New York in December. We got a lot of questions about this. Agentic quoting, agentic consumption. Think about these as the ability to take your end users and in runtime really help them supercharge what they're doing through the quoting process or through the consumption process. But I'll tell you what, you know what I'm actually more excited about? I'm more excited about agentic catalog. One of the things that we have been hearing over and over again from our customers is how can we reduce cost and how can we increase top line revenue, right? How do we see real value through Agentforce? And to me, going through and having an AI agent help you set up your product catalog can be an immense amount of work. And yet think about how much you can potentially offload, saving cost, and even increasing consistency throughout the entire catalog experience. So whether it's a runtime agent like quoting or consumption or renewals, or whether it's more of a design time or back office agent like catalog, I think they all work together to harmonize the entire process. So I lied. I have one more slide and then I'm really done. One of the things I'm most proud of is we've gotten a ton of materials, enablement materials out into the market. There is still more to go, right? No doubt about that. But just before Dreamforce, we released our new consultant certification. We've got a huge amount of Trailhead classes being built. I'm on weekly calls about even more Trailheads being built. So we're trying to get as much information out to the market as possible in terms of enablement. And hopefully you're seeing that as well so that you too can become an Agentforce Revenue Management champion. So I may have gone a little over my time. I apologize. I get very excited about this. But hopefully that gives everyone a good view into what we're doing at Salesforce, not only what we've been doing, but the immense amount of innovation that we have coming as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. And yes, Steve, we will send out these slides afterwards so you can have all of these great links. And I love hearing David and Salesforce in general talk about kind of the future of the product and the capabilities. There's so much I wish we could cover here. Unfortunately, we're not exactly doing a demo today, and we're not exactly talking about our agents, but there's so much I hope we can kind of touch on at the end here of the new user interface is so much more flexible and easy to use than previous systems, and the agents are a whole other topic we'd love to get into, but just piggybacking on that, David, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for the insight. And next, we're going to pass over to Impel, and Impel is going to be a real example of a collaboration that we had with Salesforce, NSG, and Impel, of course. And you're going to hear in a moment how they were pressed with a difficult decision of what tool to move forward with and why they made the decision to move forward and sort of upgrade their CRMs. And NSG played a major role in kind of helping work with them to guide them on this decision. So at that, Andy and Luke, we would love to hear from you guys. And I will change the slide for you here. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Yeah, we are so psyched to be here alongside David and talking to you all about our experience working with Northlight and the decision points that we faced for this new implementation. So I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking a little bit about giving you some context, because I think it is a real world example, obviously, that a lot of folks are probably at a similar decision point on. And it wasn't easy for us, but we've been really pleased with the results. So my name's Andy Bolin. I'm the VP of Finance for Impel.ai. I'm responsible for the revenue operations and financial planning of the organization. Alongside me here is Luke Fitzwater, our Sales Operations Director, who's the owner of our go-to-market tech stack and our in-house Salesforce expert. So when it comes to Q&A, you'll probably be hearing more from Luke and less from me, but we're really excited to be here. Impel.ai is one of the largest vertical AI software companies in the country. We're focused on building technology specifically for the automotive industry. Our AI platform helps automotive dealers and manufacturers deliver better experiences and better business outcomes at every touch point along their customers' car buying and ownership journey. Our technology intelligently basically handles much of the manual repetitive work for frontline employees so they can spend more time building meaningful relationships with customers. So essentially what Salesforce is doing for us with Agentforce, we are also doing for car dealerships and some of the SMB market out there. The company's been growing rapidly, right? We've seen explosive growth over the last couple of years, both organically and through acquisitions. And so Luke and I joined the company within the last 2 years to ensure that our internal revenue operations, processes, and systems were prepared to support the next 5 to 10 years of organic and inorganic growth for the business. So we're excited to be here to talk to you about our recent implementation of Agentforce Revenue Management, because that was a key part of that next gen plan for our future growth as a business. I did want to provide a little bit of context on how we got here, Ben. So I hope you don't mind if I take a few minutes to do that. We were introduced to Northlight in early 2024, from our Salesforce account executive team. And right away, I could tell Ben knew what he was talking about and was a complete CPQ expert and really loved the project team that he started to put together for some smaller enhancement projects that we were working on at the time. Initially, the Impel instance of Salesforce had been, we had been working on and developing over about 7 or 8 years. So we were just planning on further enhancements to that. We were connecting Salesforce to our ERP to automate the order to billing cycle. And then in the middle of 2024, about 6 months after I started with Impel, we acquired another business of a similar size. It was very much a merger for us. They had very established practices. The company had been around for 20 plus years. They were prolific Salesforce users. And so we quickly went from looking at how are we going to enhance Impel's current systems, processes, and workflows to, okay, now we have 2 businesses with very set processes. How do we kind of look at merging the 2 and taking the best practices from both instances and companies and applying it to one, as well as introducing some new logic and some new best practices that we wanted to. So that acquisition ended up being a catalyst for us to basically pause and look at the big picture here and reassess basically what we wanted to do across the full tech stack. And so, in addition to merging the orgs, we also wanted to, merge and possibly introduce these new best practices. So I think as a result of that, we brought in Northlight. From the little work that we had done, we were really happy with some of the projects that we had worked with them on. We ended up engaging Northlight to help us with a robust discovery and design session to review not only Impel's systems, workflows, and processes and policies, but also outsells. And we basically said, hey, we have a lot of technical debt in both systems. Is one or the other better in terms of migrating into an org, or do we want to start fresh? At the end of the day, we basically said we need to eliminate as much tech debt as possible. Given that both companies had pretty well-established integrations and workflows, we said let's start fresh. Let's take the best of both, and we want to introduce a new automated quoting process as well to the team to enhance our kind of sales cycle as well. So we started fresh, and it's worth it to say that part of the reason for this was that the automotive industry, our customer base is a surprisingly complex ecosystem to sell into. There's tons of relationships and interconnections and different permutations between which contracts are governed pricing terms versus which customers we're delivering our product to versus which customers are receiving the bill, right? So for example, you could have 2 dealer groups that we sell into that are made up of 20 dealerships each that we service. One has a centralized billing. The other is decentralized billing to each of the individual 20 stores. Another dealer group may have directly contracted pricing with Impel, but 50% of their stores are governed by master pricing agreements that Impel has with national vehicle manufacturers like Ford or GM. So there's all these relationships that go into the constraint model in terms of what products we can sell and which packages we can sell to which customer based on what manufacturer they're associated with, et cetera. So it's actually a pretty complex set of permutations that you can experience in the automotive industry. And so we really wanted an automated quoting tool that could handle that amount of complexity and take into consideration some of those design needs in order to provide our sales team with, instead of the entire product catalog, a very dynamic product catalog of what they could actually sell to each individual end customer. And so that with Agentforce Revenue Management, that was something that was really appealing to us. So after diligence, we partnered with Northlight. Like I said, we decided to go with a fresh Salesforce org. And we wanted to introduce new functionality as a part of this, which I talked about, which is the automated order to cash workflow. One of the key decision points we had, and this was another, I'm sure a lot of you can relate. One of the key decision points we faced in the discovery and design was whether we go with CPQ or the new RCA or ARM, as it's now called. And to be honest with you, it was a bit of a crossroads for us because we knew CPQ was nearing end of sale, right, with a sunsetting product development roadmap. RCA was still in development with enhancements still to come that we wanted. So after the discovery and with Northlight's help, we estimated that ARM could handle approximately 90% of our requirements in its generally available state at that point in time last summer. with the rest hopefully being addressed in upcoming releases. And so, to be honest, we were a bit of a mixed camp, like internally. Some folks on the team were leaning toward the tried and true CPQ. Others, including Luke and myself, were in the next gen camp, wanting to go with the vision that Agentforce Revenue Management offered. And ultimately, our executive sponsor trusted the decision to go with Agentforce Revenue Management. And we're really excited about the fact that we did that, because not only was it a complex project, but I think some of the things that David has talked about and is going to go, I'm sure, into more detail in Q&A, we're now set up so that we can take it to the next level. Not only did it satisfy a lot of that complex configuration that we needed for quoting our customers, but two real world examples of future enhancements that just recently is coming onto our radar that we're looking for, that I think we are now set up to be able to accomplish with Agentforce Revenue Management. 2026, as we kick off the year, one big focus of our G&A function is to really look at leveraging AI internally, essentially eating our own dog food, if you will, in terms of making sure that we're optimizing internal processes, leveraging AI. And so if we had gone with CPQ, we probably wouldn't have been able to have that much opportunity to enhance our current workflows with the AI functionality that Agentforce offers. So that's something that's on our roadmap that we're now set up, which we wouldn't have been had we gone with CPQ. The other one is just happened as of last week. The CFO approached me just last week and asking about what alternatives we might have to move our billing module out of our ERP and into something different in a more streamlined process. And with ARM, we now have the building blocks in place to be able to kind of take on those initiatives in 2026 and make them more of a reality sooner rather than later. So it's been great. I mean, working with Northlight has been a great process. Every time I think, and our Salesforce team too, frankly, as an early adopter on Agentforce Revenue Management through the Salesforce Premier support, we were able to get the right people on the phone when we hit roadblocks through the implementation. And work through them. All tickets that we ran, that we processed and requested, we had conversations on, and Northlight did a great job of building the relationships with the Salesforce team and continuing to be able to make progress on knocking down some of the barriers that we had throughout the implementation. And as a result of that, we had the CFO, we launched at the beginning of November, the new instance. And the CFO told me after launch that it was the smoothest launch that he's been a part of in his 35-year career. So I think a testament to, Northlight's expertise, the collaboration from the Salesforce team for this new product. It went off really well. We've been really pleased. So, and I'm not just saying that because I've been asked to be on a webinar with the Northlight and Salesforce team. It truly, that is a quote directly from our CFO. So appreciate that. And so Caroline, I think I can turn it back over to you and we can jump in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. And I think that you gave a beautiful introduction to our next piece, where we do want to kind of spotlight and highlight the Impel project team here at NSG that supported the project. This is really the team that collaborated and was able to help create the CRM, the vision that you guys had and that you have today. So I want to welcome Bilal, Cindy, Jen, and Nick, and we have them here today to help answer some questions as well, and again, just to help kind of paint the picture a little more. So my first question is over to this team we have on the screen here, and hopefully we'll kind of piggyback in some questions. So again, reminder to everybody, if you have any specific questions, please feel free to put them in the chat now. We're going to get into the Q&A portion right now. So Impel project team. During this engagement, ARM, or as we've said, RCA at the time they evaluated, was a relatively new frontier. And I think the newness of the product is still a big question for the community as a whole. We want to hear a little bit from you guys, how you approached the challenge of learning the new platform's nuances while simultaneously, advising Impel on how to restructure and allow for better business processes for the long-term scale.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I'll take this one. As Andy mentioned, this decision was made to switch to ARM after we've done discovery and design, which meant that we just had to go back and ensure that the requirements and the findings line up with what the platform was going to offer. So that required quite a bit of in-depth rework with the team, with the Impel team. And at the end of that, we made sure that, we're lined up, we're ready for the build. We had to take a bit of a pause, which that in the long run, that was a good decision to make in terms of making sure that we pivot to the right requirements. The other thing that we did was to ensure that we stay true to the North Star of the project, was to ensure that we do additional validations and checks, and that we did through two approaches. The one was ongoing demonstrations at the end of sprint cycles for ourselves and for the Impel team, showcase what we've built. Is it still true to what we've defined as the project objectives? And the other thing that we did was the data mapping was quite a challenge, and that just required iterative work with the Impel team. Mapping the data, validations, look at the outcome, and just rinse and repeat that ongoing. And that was those were the key things that we focused on during the approach, was just stay true to what the objectives are, do validation check-ins on both the functional build and the data mappings that we've done.
Yeah, I think to maybe piggyback on that a little bit too, I think from a delivery and a practice standpoint, one of the things that I think sets us unique to the rest of the industry is that we have some of the most senior resources when it comes to quote to cash and then lead to cash space around. I'm super proud of this team, super proud of the team and the practice we continue to build. I think that team and that experience helped us navigate kind of these uncharted waters. They've been in there before. We've seen new products roll out before. But I think the other thing that made this project so successful and what kind of was the secret recipe, if you will, is the fact that we had such a strong relationship with Salesforce. Typically, you don't typically get access to the product team, but we had direct access to key members of the product team when new requirements came up, when new customizations needed to be done. We were able to not only validate that with Impel and from a governance and requirement standpoint, but we also had regular access to that product team. Salesforce was able to inform us about new updates that were coming. We had, I think, much deeper knowledge of the roadmap, and that helped us either advise on where customization isn't necessary, advise us on maybe how we position and when we build something, because we wanted to wait for something that could be supported out of the box, or some combination of the two. I think that relationship, and to me, it was a lot of synergies that kind of connected all three of us between Impel, Salesforce, and ourselves. Really kind of, it never felt like we never lost a step with each other. So we stayed in lockstep and was able to kind of collaborate all the way through and be able to see this project, through the end together and successfully.
Yeah, and I'll just do a special shout out in case she gets to see this. Muthu, thank you so much for all your help. She's a part of the Salesforce product team. I've worked with her for I think years now, actually, and she's always a fantastic resource for us. And David was a great facilitator. I think we never felt, as much as we've seen this done so many times, and we knew it, especially at the time more so than it is now. The product was newer. We never felt alone. We always had a lifeline. We always could lean on our experience and at least those guiding principles around how we execute. And then it was, hey, let's just roll up our sleeves and really go at it. So yeah, and again, thank you to this entire Impel team. I mean, on the side of Impel, you guys were fantastic. Having a good partner that is truly a partner makes a huge difference. I cannot emphasize that enough in all my years of experience. Like being able to have a direct line to Andy and Luke. I mean, your leadership and quick, decisive decision making, and Paulina, who's on the phone and helping facilitate in the background. Like, you guys were a fantastic team, and our project team, I couldn't be more proud of them. As Bilal, you mentioned, this is only a few of the amazing rock star folks that were a part of this team, as you can imagine. But it was a daunting task, given all the totality of what the scope included, and as well as like the process analysis and the org consolidation and the data. But it was definitely a team effort, and good partnership all around. So
absolutely. So thank you guys so much for that answer, and I'm gonna then pivot it back over to Luke and Andy for our next question here. And Andy, you did touch on this, and you guys have mentioned this before, but for a company like Impel, and honestly, many of our attendees today, the initial pain that leads them to evaluating a new tool comes from this sense of technical debt. We want to hear from you on how Northlight was able to guide you to look past the symptoms of just kind of the technical debt that you wanted to clear, and really set up for any foundational gaps you might have had in your processes, or anything that was really preventing your business from scaling.
Yeah, Luke, do you want to take that?
I mean, sure. I mean, I came in, I'm Luke, by the way. So I think the big thing is like with our project, you know, we're bringing two companies together. We're bringing two Salesforce instances together. One has CPQ. They love it. One doesn't. One's using a piece of paper, you know, and trying to understand how we harmonize those two companies together. And I think, you know, through the many discussions, the collaboration, the relationship is, you know, Northlight was able to see the vision, right? This is where we need to go. And ultimately, how do we layer in this beautiful new robust tool like ARM into the equation? So I think that was really the big takeaway was they worked with us. They knew what we were trying to accomplish. They knew the challenges. And I think we kind of shorted ourselves on the magnitude of this project. It wasn't just bringing two instances to one and adding ARM. It was, you know, a MuleSoft implementation, an account engagement implementation. It was bringing all of our GTM tech stack into the mix. I mean, it was an enormous project, and, you know, being able to keep that all together, you know, hats off to Cindy, Bilal, and our project team. You know, that really was the only thing that I think drove our success, was just everybody stayed in lockstep. Everybody saw the vision where we're trying to go. And, you know, Andy's leadership too, pushing the team to the end goal. It was all equally important.
Yeah, one of the things I really appreciated with Northlight too, just to add to that, is, you know, when we set out, we wanted a partner not only just for the implementation, but one that would push back on us or consult us on best practices as well, and what was native to the system versus what was, you know, custom development. And so we had the MO that we really wanted to try and stay as out of the box as possible, so as not to introduce additional complexity on top of what's already a complex selling process. And Northlight guided us a lot through that, right? They, you know, constantly were asking us, hey, are you sure about this requirement? You know, I think we can solve for this with this native functionality, as opposed to doing custom Apex code. And so that, you know, I think is what I really appreciated, was, you know, constantly monitoring opportunities to make sure that we were designing it as simply as possible.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that it was very helpful that you guys had a charter. I mean, from the get-go, right? Like, we did a deep and immense amount of like analysis, process, technical debt, platform landscape, all of those things. We did a true up and said, hey, what makes sense? One org, the other org, a new one, right? And you guys were decisive in making that, you know, that call, which was really helpful, right? Like, these things can all kind of just drag on and contribute to the extension of timeline. You guys were very decisive around that. And then you know, in lockstep with us, like, established a vision, which was just fantastic. And having that vision, and, you know, we kind of have these principles, you know, that you'll hear me touch on, but like, you know, like those top objectives and baking that into a charter, and then having executive buy-in and really, you know, what I'll call a steer co, right? Like, that was crucial to making sure that we could make sharp decisions, and you guys were, you know, able and open to be challenged. That made a huge difference in execution for sure. So,
yeah, absolutely. I am going to go straight to David for our next question here. We talked a lot about, you know, technical debt and guiding towards kind of that North Star, as we say at Northlight. So over to you now, David, on Salesforce's standpoint, that we've obviously heard a lot of benefits about ARM today, and, you know, generally speaking, over some of the competing products. And Salesforce has been really clear that ARM is the path forward, not only for, you know, the agentic, the on-platform, you know, all the features that you mentioned, right? But we want to hear from you, if you can enlighten us on why people with CPQ or other coding tools should make this switch now rather than wait.
That's a good question. The North Star from Northlight. I like that. I'm gonna remember that moving forward. And Ben, why are you going to talk about Muthu? don't let the secret out. Okay. Like she's.
I had a
don't let-
feeling you'd get me on that one, David. I had a feeling, but
Men
I'll
in
take the
Black
flak
ring.
for that.
Everyone,
Yeah.
erase your memory. No, she's amazing. Yeah, so you're right. In terms of what we're doing for revenue transformation, Agentforce Revenue Management, Revenue Cloud Advanced, Revenue Cloud Billing is certainly the path forward. I think about this let me think about it in kind of two different categories. One is, what CPQ is not, and one, what ARM is. And I'll kind of think about it like that. So one piece of information which might be interesting for you is over the first 2 years, we thought the majority of the customers that would buy Revenue Cloud Advanced ARM would be existing CPQ customers, and that actually is not proven to be the case. Over the first 2 years, we've actually seen a greater majority of new customers to the Revenue Cloud brand buying Revenue Cloud Advanced. Now, do I think that trend will continue? No, I don't. I think as we're going into our third year of our release, I think we're going to see a pretty big groundswell of existing CPQ customers that are moving to Agentforce Revenue Management. A few reasons why. One, these projects, and even though Northlight is incredible and they do an amazing job, these projects are not easy, right? We have one of the lowest attrition rates at Salesforce. So the Revenue Cloud, that means when customers buy this product, they generally don't get rid of it. Is that because it's the best thing ever made? I think so, right? I'm biased, but it's because once it's in and it works, don't look at it, don't touch it, right? But the reality is there are some struggles that customers have with the legacy CPQ package. I mentioned it earlier. So native speed. CPQ is a managed package that sits on top of Salesforce. And so if your sales reps are complaining about a calculator that spins and spins, or you're getting heap size errors or that kind of thing because you just can't scale to the size of your business, that is an issue with the managed package that is Salesforce CPQ, right? And so in terms of looking forward, being built on core provides a considerable amount more speed, scalability. You're not getting bogged down by kind of a black box calculator when you think about pricing procedures and true transparency and visibility into what's running and how it's running. Another thing is, for organizations that are interested in dipping their toe into the agentic world, you can tie Agentforce to the CPQ package. It is going to be a customization, likely going to be a decent amount of work, and you're probably increasing the amount of technical debt. Like Andy, I think you mentioned earlier, that you're putting onto Salesforce CPQ. So if the idea is to move forward, that may be one of the things where you start to look at it and you say, all right, to use Agentforce to the full potential, where we're actually using it for consumption, for renewals, for building our product catalog, for upsells based on real-time data, then the modern architecture of Agentforce Revenue Management is critical. And then, I kind of shift over to, not necessarily what CPQ isn't, but what Agentforce Revenue Management is. It is, first off, hear me when I say this. It is not CPQ 2.0. It was never intended to be, right? It is the all-in-one revenue management reality. So again, the messy parts of the business, the single source of truth, it's a real thing. Combining sales, combining finance through product catalog, through quoting, through contract and CLM, through order management and decomposition, through DRO, through billing, through payment, and through collections, all of it being built on that same platform. And so, when you close the deal, everybody is kept up to date. The data is exactly where it needs to be. No manual reconciliations, no syncing. And so that's why I really think that, again, in our junior season of Agentforce Revenue Management, in year 3 of our release, I think we're going to see the percentages flip, where we are now seeing a lot more of our thousands of CPQ customers say, all right, I'm ready. I see the parity. I see where they're going above and beyond. So let's talk.
David, I think we're, in my mind, shaping up our next webinar on Agentforce, because there's just so much that we could talk about on it. And I love every time it comes up. I think a lot of people are, curious how it works, how to get started, that sort of thing. So I'll digress past that and say, there's a lot of questions coming up in my mind, and I'm sure our audience as well on Agentforce would love to talk more about that. But I want to kind of piggyback on that, not even specific to the CPQ standpoint. And Ben, this question is going to be for you. Not even just CPQ, but any of these, let's say legacy quoting sort of tools. A big complaint is that they aren't scalable. And I think for those of us who knew the CPQ world and now see ARM, it is much easier to maintain. It's so much more feature heavy. And I want to see, Ben, if you have anything to add on to what David said as far as how this new tool ARM is designed to handle some of these complex deal structures, any specific features that we want to dive into now to let the audience know some of the more the scalability features.
Yeah, I mean, so I echo a lot of what David said specifically around on platform, right? Like that out of the gate. So, and great question, by the way. And like without doing much of a formal introduction, suffice to say, I've been around since the earliest days of revenue solutions on Salesforce, including homegrown on Sales Cloud, including Steelbrick CPQ after it was acquired and became Salesforce CPQ and released Salesforce Billing and all of those tools. And so like my passion is really bred from, making sure and I found out way back when I was hands-on, resource and played architect role and executive oversight as a part of a number of transformational engagements. The one salient truth is guiding principles mean everything. So you'll hear me mention that quite a bit. And what that means and how it relates to this question is exactly what I was just setting up, and what David already mentioned is that on platform makes such a difference, right? Point one, being on platform to do things like multi-account selling, as an example. Let's take Impel, right? Like being able to consume a heavy amount of data inputs around contractual relationships, account hierarchies, and have those kind of sometimes conflicting constraints and relationships cascade over different accounts, different partner frameworks, et cetera. Doing that in legacy CPQ was a burden. I'll just summarize it that way, right? Like being able to leverage some of the scalable framework in Salesforce ARM, right, or ARM, that includes like Omni Studio and being able to leverage some rule-based logic, being able to leverage the context definitions to pull in unique data details and leverage the pricing procedures, which are what a lot of us have been familiar with years. It's more of a flow-based model, right? So looking at things kind of more constructively gives us a leg up in a lot of ways. Another area which, we've heard a lot about pain, problems with impacting user experience, impacting performance, are unique pricing scenarios, right? Like one of those is like price ramps, or as a lot of people like to refer them as previously it was called MDQ, but they could be, stair-step pricing, discounts, et cetera. Like it's referred to a lot of things, but really what that means in the end is, I have a term-based solution where the pricing ramps up or down, or the quantity ramps up or down. And historically, we've seen a lot of constraint in being able to even leverage some of the native capabilities of CPQ, because that would heavily tax the UI UX, right? The user experience based on like all of these lines baked into the quote line editor, or that would heavily tax the performance of the platform, because we're now increasing volumes of quote size. We're now hitting heap size limits, as David mentioned, especially if we have like very heavy pricing procedures, which at the time were price rules and quote calculator plugin, right? Like these things that you guys are common, are used to hearing. So like today, the framework is UI UX first. Like that's the first thing that rings true. And so the second you'll see this, if you haven't seen a demo of it yet, you'll see UI UX first, right? So like there's a richer data layer behind how details like multi-dimensional quoting, price and quantity ramps are behind the scenes and can be exposed as needed. There's a richer layer of data and richness behind assets, right? All of the asset actions that transpire over an existing subscription or a sold good lives in another layer of data, right? Like all of the changes to that lives in another layer of data, asset state periods. And so like this allows you to bubble up the key data points without taxing the user experience and taxing the performance of the system. But I can go on and on about it, but like it's that on platform, it really just transcends all of the feature sets that we've ran into some constraints previously. and legacy CPQ platforms, not even just Salesforce CPQ, frankly. So.
Yeah, we all could probably go on and on, those of us working with ARM, on the richness of the features. Absolutely. So we'll have to, hopefully everyone here is familiar with the platform, thinking about it, evaluating it, but we'll have to send a demo clip over with the follow-up with the slides, because it is very feature heavy and very clean looking. So anyway, for sake of time, I'm going to try and rush us through. Let's try for 2 more questions. I want to toss one back over to Luke and Andy so we can hear from them again before our time is up. And Luke and Andy, I'm putting you on the spot here for advice you might have. And as I mentioned, majority of the people here watching are likely evaluating ARM or have heard about it, want to learn more. We want to hear from you. If you could kind of go back to day 1 of your assessment and kind of your decision making, we want to hear a piece of advice you would give another global leader or business who might be considering this transition.
Well, then you take that one.
I got yeah, going back to day 1, I think the best piece of advice I would give is do the robust design and discovery process and phase of the project. I think you have to sorry, just had CEOs just stepped in the office and distracted me a little bit. So no, I guess the best piece of advice I would give is, look, we did a bake-off where, we had been working with Northlight, but we consulted, we put it out to 3 different consultants to work with us on this bigger project. We could have gone a cheaper route and come back with a lot less robust deliverable in terms of the all the requirement gathering, all the decision points that need to be made. I think that what impressed me the most and what I think set us up for success with this a project of this magnitude and a decision to move with ARM was really digging into the details with the Northlight team and getting the right consultant on board. I think, of the 3, Northlight was on the more expensive end, but when you looked at the deliverables that they were going to provide, they were very transparent about their pricing model. They were very transparent about what they were going to uncover through the process. Whereas I think, past experiences of mine, you kind of get in, you get a short deliverable and it falls short of what you're really expecting to be able to pull off the project. And then there's, change orders that, basically get you to the same point anyway, or even possibly more expensive. So I think, being not shortchanging the discovery process to save a buck and really dig into the details and get clear on what your needs are was a big factor, I think, in a big thing that we did that I was really pleased that we did, because when it came to implementation, we knew exactly what we were going to do and what had to be done.
I love that answer, Andy, and thank you humbly on behalf of NSG for, that's really what we anchor on and that we talk about, that we specialize in, right, is the consultative approach of being able to guide in what the best decisions are and really what's going to be the most out of the box, and some of the things that you had mentioned earlier. So Ben, I'm going to throw you a question. You've got about 60 seconds before we've got to wrap it up here to answer this one. But piggybacking off of that, I want to hear from your standpoint on maybe not necessarily on the discovery and design phase leading up to it, et cetera. We want to hear from some of the maybe hard questions that we ask that can kind of guide customers to realize how their operations might be causing bottlenecks, or how we recommend rediscovery and restructuring over simple lift and shift. Anything you can provide to us there on some of the ways that we can guide to making those decisions that Andy talked about.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll be as quick as possible. I like that one. I like how it's framed. Specifically hard questions, right? Because like from my experience, I can tell a lot of folks see it as like a daunting challenge to overcome. But it helps to start with a framework, right? If there's one thing I center us around, it's like starting with a framework. We have a framework that really like categorizes like processes and inflection points, and Impel got to see a lot of this across groupings of the lead to loyalty spectrum. And so when I say lead to loyalty spectrum, like this isn't just, and David's touched on this isn't just CPQ. This isn't just quote to cash. We're talking go-to-market strategy. We're talking your product vision and your pricing strategy, your selling motions and related sales channels. We're talking segueing that to back office operations and rev cycle processes, and really looking at the totality of the customer life cycle, including, customer success. So that's really where that concept of lead to loyalty comes from. And so we take business owners through those processes, and really like our secret sauce is we know when to ask why, right? Like that's, why, like when we hit a certain point that we hear something that's like, that doesn't make sense, or that's not how I've seen it done well before, we ask why. So find somebody that's going to ask your why, right? Like we know that like, there's certain questions that are going to come up, and like pretty much anybody can say that doesn't make sense, but there's certain things that are nuanced in the details. And so all of this to say, your business owners know the process that they spend most of their time on. They know the pain they feel. So ask those questions and then ask why, right? The universal truth across every business and pretty much all business personas is, why? Why are we doing it this way? What can we do differently? Challenging the status quo. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Andy, Luke. Thank you all for being here, the Impel Project team, all of our attendees, everybody. Thank you for sharing so many invaluable insights today. And thank you for cramming in those last few questions with me. So I'll just kind of wrap it up here with, if you are a company here that is looking for more information about evolving your revenue strategy or moving forward with Agentforce Revenue Management, we want to help you find the right path forward. As noted, we'll send out the slides, the webinars, a brief demo, the trailheads David mentioned. We'll send out all the resources, but we also would love to help you kind of dig deeper. And as you might have noticed when you registered, we are offering a complimentary ARM advisory assessment. It's designed to help give you direct access to our implementation team to really talk a lot more about this. We'll spend time understanding your specific business pain in order to kind of build a tailored implementation plan for you that helps to reduce disruption, maximize ROI. We're, again, very passionate about this tool. So keep an eye on your inbox. We'll be sending some emails shortly. We'll be following up with all of the resources mentioned, and would love to talk to you further. Again, can't thank you all enough for being here, and hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the time, Caroline. Thanks, everybody. Very, very much appreciated. Take care all.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.